Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining me and thank you for your continued support. So today, as I said in my previous video, I'm going to be talking about an article that's in the Disability News Service website. So this is a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about tragic circumstances. So obviously if you are sensitive to that, then please, I do understand if you don't want to watch this video, but if you do watch it, then I would urge you please to share it as much as possible, because I want people to hear, people who don't understand the situation regarding DWP and how it can affect people. I want them to see the consequences sometimes of what the government does, or what the DWP does, should we say. So let's go over to the article now. It's in the Disability News Service, and I'll show you what happened. As I said, this is in the Disability News Service website. PIP review failures were a significant factor in disabled woman's ending her life, says Ombudsman, as Labour prepares £4.5 billion cuts. Now, I'm sorry, I can't say certain words. It's not because I don't want to, it's because YouTube hates certain words being said. So that's the reason why I'm saying it. And obviously I want this video to get to as many people as possible. So that's why I'm doing this. A widower has said he will never forgive the Department for Work and Pensions for its failings in dealing with his wife's disability benefits after an ombudsman ruled those failures were a significant contributing factor to her death. The wife's mental health had been stable, but she spiralled into a deep depression after DWP removed the daily living part of her personal dependence payment following a review of her eligibility in 2019. Now, bearing in mind that changes to the daily living part of PIP are what they are considering doing in this green paper. So things like this could happen many more times over because of these changes. The Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman has now concluded that DWP, which eventually admitted that its decision on her claim had been wrong, failed to consider the relevant evidence properly. The Ombudsman is now looking at whether DWP needs to make wider changes to its service and the way it considers benefit claims as part of a wider piece of work which includes an investigation into the death of another disabled claimant. It is a second tragedy connected with DWP's PIP review system to be reported by the Disability News Service in consecutive weeks. Now, I spoke before, I did a video before about the death of David, who was a disabled man whose body was found in a very distressing situation. That was a story which of course affected a lot of people. I know that it did in my comments. A lot of people were very upset by that. It will also add to concerns about the harm and likely deaths set to be caused by the Labour government's plans to cut spending on PIP by £4.5 billion a year. Now, I did a video again which actually says independent analysts think that it could be as much as £9 billion they're going to try and save, rather than 4.5 they have mentioned, by 29-30, along with other controversial cuts and reforms to disable people's social security support. DNS has been following the progress of the Ombudsman's investigation into the disability woman's death for more than 3 years. Her husband, Mustafa from London, originally contacted DNS in late 21 because of his anger over DWP's role in the death of his much-loved wife Tracy, 8 months after the department cut their PIP payments. He has asked DNS not to use their surnames to partly protect their son. The Ombudsman has now produced its final report into Tracy's death and has concluded after a lengthy investigation that DWP's failure, which led to it removing the daily living part of her PIP, had a significant impact on her mental health and was a significant contributing factor to her death. Tracy had been receiving the standard rate of both mobility and daily living components since 2016, but following an assessment on 5th of June 2019, as part of a review of her entitlement, the DWP decided the following month to remove her daily living component after she only received 6 points, too short of the 8 she needed to qualify for the standard rate. She asked for a statutory reconsideration, but DWP confirmed its original decision on the 12th of September, which they very often do. She appealed to the tribunal but was unable to attend a hearing scheduled for the 17th of February 2020 due to ill health, so it was postponed. Tracy, who also had asthma and fibromyalgia and other long-term health conditions, took her life the following month. Now, I have to say that the tribunal was, of course, it says here, was postponed because she couldn't attend. For those who haven't been through a tribunal, you can have it done without you being there. Now, obviously, if you can be there, it's important because you can give your own opinions and you can talk about the situation. But they can do it without you, so don't feel as though you have to attend the tribunal if you don't want to. It can be done without you. Obviously, they can only then work on the papers that you've submitted and the DWP submitted, but it can be done without your presence there. Several months after her death, DWP changed its decision before a tribunal could deal with the appeal, awarding her 14 points and the enhanced daily living rate, arguing that her mental health and chronic pain has significantly deteriorated after the initial decision. So this is basically covering their tracks. The Ombudsman has now concluded that DWP had largely relied on the same evidence it possessed when it initially decided to remove her eligibility for the daily living component, and it should not have been removed in July 2019. The Ombudsman found that the DWP did not appropriately score in 3 categories in its initial decision, and that she should have scored at least 8 points, which would have made her eligible for the basic PIP daily living rate, which was worth £59 a week at the time. The report concludes DWP's decision to increase her score prior to the tribunal without new evidence calls into question the initial decision making. But of course it does. This is something they've done to try and cover things up. Mustafa told us that the evidence his wife presented when she initially applied for the daily living component and was declined was largely consistent with what DWP used to award it prior to the appeal hearing. Based on the evidence we have seen, this is the case. The Ombudsman also found that Tracy had mental ill health, including anxiety and depression, for many years before the DWP's decision in 2019, and had been doing extremely well mentally. But in the run-up to her PIP review, she was told mental health staff she was anxious about the process and the outcome, and her mental health then began to deteriorate significantly after the July decision. Just 3 weeks after the decision to cut her PIP, she attempted to take her life, and she told hospital staff that she was upset that her PIP had been reduced and that she did not know how she would survive, and felt hopeless and stressed because of money issues and everything was going wrong. She then attempted it again in late September 2019 and told staff she was experiencing financial pressures and was struggling to pay her rent, and that her family may get evicted because she messed up her PIP, which of course is not what happened. This was completely the DWP's fault. She didn't do anything wrong, and it's awful because a lot of people do feel that they've done something wrong, and it's not the case. It's the DWP. It's a tragic situation. There was another incident of self-harm in January 2020, and she told incident and emergency staff that she had stopped taking her usual medications for a few weeks previously as she could not afford her prescription charges and was thinking about taking her life. Tracy was again examined in hospital in February 2020, where she told staff that she was awaiting the outcome of her PIP appeal, but she did not think the decision would change anyway, and she felt very anxious about her reduced income and her contribution to household bills. She was found to be at high risk of taking her own life, but was still discharged from hospital on the 9th of February, which I don't think that should have happened either. After twice speaking to her GP about increased pain levels, her body was found in a public place on 15th of March. The Ombudsman report says, based on the evidence, it seems clear that her mental health spiralled after DWP decided not to award her daily living component of PIP. She went from being stable with good mental health to wanting to take her life and making repeated attempts to do so. The Ombudsman concluded that DWP's incorrect decision not to award her daily living component initially played a significant role in her decline of mental health, although her pain was also increasing and becoming more frequent to the point where she was struggling to sleep, which probably also affected her mental health. The Ombudsman said he was unable to say that the PIP decision was the sole factor in the decline of her mental health and subsequent decision to take her life, but had DWP made the appropriate decision in the first instance, she may not have deteriorated in the way she did. Nothing can be done now to put right the impact to Tracy. However, her family will never know if things could have been different, and this in itself is a significant injustice to them. The Ombudsman did not ask DWP to write to Mustafa to apologise, as he had made it clear he would not accept such an apology from the department. but it is said that DWP had acknowledged failings in the case and the injustice that it had caused. It added, "We have considered the wider service issues and whether the mistakes DWP made in this case would have happened again to other people. We have been unable to reach a view on this based on current evidence we have seen. However, we have agreed with Mustafa and DWP that it will consider these wider service issues as part of another ongoing case we are investigating where the underlying events and claimed impact overlap with this case." Now this article does go on, so I'm going to leave the link to it so you can read it in full, but that's the basic outcome and outlining of the case. And it's tragic. It really is tragic that not only did they fail her by some reason not giving her the points that she should have got, even though she'd got them before, but also the fact that they didn't take into consideration her failing health, that after she had passed away they then decided to change the decision, which was, we all know what that reason for that is. They just wanted to try and make things better, cover things up, and that, after that they admitted that there was a problem, but it's too late then, and these cases have happened many times where the DWP have said they've admitted they've made a mistake and it hasn't changed the situation. They still do the same things over and again. I'm glad the Ombudsman are also looking at David's case, and I hope that this puts mounting pressure on the government to understand what they are doing could potentially mean to a lot of people. I am sorry that this is such a sad story, and I do appreciate that this is a very triggering situation, but thank you for listening. Please do share this video if you can as widely as possible so that people can get to understand what the implications are of what the government's planning to do. And I hope that you guys are okay, and I will see you next time.